All right, welcome back, and this is our first of 4 practice tests. So this is taken straight from a practice book, 60 problems, okay? I put a timer on there for 60 seconds so you know how fast a minute goes, but again, push pause and then I'll come back and explain the ones you did wrong. So good luck, and here we go. All right, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Okay, it says in triangle XYZ, angle Y is obtuse. Which of the following statements is true about the measures of X and Z? Well, if you have an obtuse angle, and the other two have to be acute. So it says A, the sum of the measures of the two angles is equal to 180. That's false, because the sum of the three angles of a triangle equals 180. So if the other two angles equals 180, then that has to be nothing, which we know isn't true because that's obtuse. So that's false. B, one and only one of the angles is obtuse. No, neither one can be obtuse because Y is obtuse. So that's false. C says the sum of the measures of the two angles is less than 90 degrees. Well, it has to be, because if this is obtuse, that means it's more than 90. Well, if the three angles have to add up to 180, and this is more than 90, then those two have to be less than 90. So that is a true statement. D, one and only one of the angles is acute. Again, that's false, because if Y is obtuse, then these two both have to be acute. A triangle can only have at most one obtuse angle in it. And then E, the sum of the measures of the two angles is equal to 90 degrees. Well, that would only be if, no, that can't be true either, because Y is obtuse, which means more than 90. If these equaled exactly 90, then that would have to be exactly 90, and it's not because it's obtuse. So that is also false. Okay. Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got H. So it says the Matos family decided to go on a 3-day trip. The first day they drove 125.5 miles. The second day they drove 80 2/5 miles. And on the third day they traveled 95 3/4 miles. What was the total distance they traveled during the 3 days? Well, you either need to go fraction or decimal. So we've got 125.5 the first day. 80 2/5. Well, 2/5, if you divide 2 by 5, is 0.4. So 80 2/5 would be 80.4. And then 3/4 is 0.75. So 95 3/4 miles is 95.75 miles. We add all those up and you get 301.65 miles. Okay, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got E. So it says 3 different items, A, B, and C, are purchased at a store. The sales tax on these items can be found by multiplying the price of each item by 5% and adding the results. Which of the following equations represents the total cost of those 3 items, including tax? Well, what happens is you're going to go up there and you're going to pay all of the price of A plus 5% of A. Well, 5% is 0.05 of A would be times A. So that would be the total price for your item A, and then you're going to buy all of B, so you have one whole B plus 5% of that B. And then you're going to do your C. I have all of C's price plus 5% of that price. Well, if you add all those up and combine like terms, there's 1.05A plus 1.05B plus 1.05C. Okay? Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. It says, which of the following is equivalent to this expression? Well, they got rid of parentheses. Well, nothing to distribute here, so that stays 2x minus 6y. distribute the positive here, that's positive 8x and a negative 5y. Then combine like terms. 2x plus 8x is 10x. Negative 6y minus 5y is negative 11y. And done. Okay, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got C. It says, which of the following sets of numbers contain all prime numbers? Alright, our primes are 1, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 25. And it doesn't look like they go much over 17. So, A is not because 9 is not prime. B, 10 is not prime. Neither is 8. C, 2 is prime. Oh, sorry, 2 is the only even prime number. 2 is prime. 5 is prime. 7 is prime. 13 is prime. Those are all prime. In this one, again, 9 is not prime. And again, in this one, 9 is not prime. Okay, just because it's odd doesn't mean that it's prime. So the answer would be C. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got the square root of 34. In the diagram below, what is the length of the line segment joining the 2 points? So they want the distance, and your distance formula is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So my distance is going to be the square root of 2 minus a negative 3 squared plus 6 minus 3 squared. That gives me 2 minus a negative is positive, so that's 5 squared. 6 minus 3 is, that's 3 squared. So that's 25 plus 9, which is 34. So my distance is the square root of 34. Okay? Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 60 degrees. So in the figure below, triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. What is the degree measure of angle 1? Well, that angle is going to be the same as this angle because they're vertical angles. And since this is an equilateral triangle, all 3 angles are equal. So if you divide 180 by 3, that makes each one of these angles 60 degrees, which makes this angle 60 degrees. Okay? Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got K. So it says an athlete spends 2 hours, which is 120 minutes, exercising each day. Of that time, the athlete spends 20 minutes stretching and warming up, 50 minutes jogging, and 35 minutes lifting weights. If the athlete spends the rest of the exercise time cooling down, what % of the exercise time is devoted to cooling down? Excuse me. So he spends a total of 120 minutes. Take away the 20 minutes for stretching and warming up. Take away the 50 minutes for jogging. Take away the 35 minutes for lifting weights, and that leaves 15 minutes. Well, the question is, what % of the exercise time is devoted to cooling down? So I want to know 15 minutes is what % of 120? Well, if you remember our is over of equals P over 100, if we've got the is, it says 15 is what % of, there's my of, 120. That equals P over 100. So this way gives me 1500 equals, this way gives me 120p. Divide by 120, and you get P equals 12.5%. Or you could have just divided this and moved the decimal 2 places over. Either way. Okay? Alright, do this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 9 and 7/12. Alright, people teach this differently. Me, I can't stand mixed numbers, so I just change them to improper fractions. 4 times 4 is 16. plus 1 is 17 over the original denominator is 4. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16 over the original denominator is 3. So then if you do our whole crisscross straight across to get a common denominator, criss would be 17 times 3 plus cross would be 4 times 16 over straight across would be 4 times 3. And it's just a crisscross straight across is a way to add fractions and to get a common denominator. It might not be the smallest, but it will always get you a matching denominator. So 17 times 3 is 51 plus 4 times 16 is 64 over 4 times 3 is 12. That's 115 over 12. And if we divide that to make it, obviously my numbers are in mixed numbers instead of improper. So if I do 115 divided by 12, and I just did it on a calculator, and it's 9 point something, 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 something. Well, that tells me it's 9 whole times. So I take 9 times 12 is 108. Take off 108 leaves 7. So my answer is 9 and 7/12 as a mixed number. Okay? The other thing you could do, which I don't put the decimal on here. When you divide this on a calculator, you're going to get 9 point something, 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 something. So you know that the answer either has to be C or D. What you can do if you're not real comfortable about changing back into mixed numbers is whatever that decimal part is, you could do this part on the calculator, type in 2 divided by 7, see if it equals the decimal part. If it doesn't, then you could type in the 7/12 and see if it equals the decimal part of it. So again, if you're not real comfortable on doing this, you can divide these out. Again, work from your answers. Divide the fraction parts out and see which one matches your decimal end of it. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got K. So we're going to simplify the expression. Well, parentheses first. There's nothing distributing in this set, so we have 3a squared plus b squared minus 1. I have to distribute the negative to this set, so that's going to be negative a squared, positive b squared, and positive 1. So then I can combine like terms. I have 3a squared minus 1a squared gives me 2a squared. I have 1b squared plus 1b squared is 2b squared, and I have a negative 1 and a positive 1, which cancels each other out. So I'm looking at my answers. This isn't there. But I notice if I could factor out a 2, these both have a 2 in common, so GCF by 2 leaves a squared plus b squared, and that's my answer. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got to eat. So it says Ben, Jim, Alice, Aaron, and Rick are friends. Ben is 20 years old. Jim is 17. Alice is 21. And Aaron is 19. So we've got Ben, we've got Jim, we've got Alice, and we've got Aaron. And it says, how old is Rick? Well, I don't know how old Rick is, but if I'm going to take an average, I need to add them all up and divide by how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it says that average is 20. So whatever this is, it has to equal 20. Well, if I do some simplifying here, there's my equation. If I add up these guys, I get 77 plus r on top over 5 equals 20. I'm going to kill that fraction, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 5, which gives me 77 plus Rick's age equals 100. So to get Rick's age, I'm going to subtract 77, and I get Rick is 23 years old. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. Alright, so it says, which of the following linear equations has a slope of negative 5/3? Well, if we look at F, to get slope, I need to get Y alone. So I'm going to move this over and this over. So that would leave me 4y equals negative, sorry about the line there, negative 3x plus 5. Just remember, when you move things to the other side, they're going to have the opposite sign when they move over. Because to make a 3x go over the other side, I would subtract 3x, and I would add 5 and add 5 to make them go away. So if you don't mind, I'm going to skip those steps and just move them over in my head. Because I'm just so old and have done this for so long, I just know when you move things from one side to the other, the signs change. So then, to get y alone, I divide by 4. And once y is alone, there's your slope. Well, that is not negative 5/3, so f is out. If I try g, again, I want to get y alone, so I'm going to have 3y equals 5x on the other side would be negative. Positive 2 on the other side would be negative. Divide by 3, and there's my slope, which works. And again, at this point, in the real ACT, I would not keep checking. You found the answer. There's only one solution. Go on. But again, just for practice, I'll check the other ones for you. H would, to get y alone, I would move 2x over, which would make it negative on the other side. Divide by negative 5, and this slope would be a positive 2/5, so that's not it. J, again, just to get y alone, that's going to be easy. Just divide by 6, so I'd have y equals 2 over 6x plus 1 over 6, which would make that slope 1/3, which is not negative 5/3, so that's out. And then finally I have k. To get y alone, I'm going to move these 3x and 4 over, so 5y equals positive 3x on the other side will be negative, positive 4 on the other side will be negative, divide by 5, and I get a slope of negative 3/5, but that's upside down. So G is my solution. Alrighty, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got C. It says the intersection of which of the following always forms a point. Two separate planes. When planes intersect, and I can't draw, I quit. Okay, that's really bad. But they intersect in a line. The circumference of a circle in a plane. Well, if you have a plane and the circumference of a circle, they're going to intersect in more than one place, so they don't form a point. Two non-parallel lines in a plane. If you're in a plane and you take two non-parallel lines, then I promise they're going to intersect at a point. So C would be my solution. Again, and you would stop. You wouldn't check the others once you found your answer, but for this practice I will. It says the surface of a cube and the circumference of a circle. Well, again, when you have the surface of a cube, you're talking about a plane, and the circumference of a circle, that's going to intersect in more than one spot, not more than one point. And the circumferences of two circles, it could just form a point, depending on, like, if it just hit it one time, all right? But it doesn't say can it, it just says will it always, and no, those could cross 2 times, 4 times, okay? So they won't always just form a point. Okay, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Alright, I think what they're going for here is to see if you remember how to expand a binomial with either Pascal's triangle or the binomial coefficient theorem. Okay, but in an I don't know. I wouldn't think that they're going to go much higher than the 3rd degree on an ACT. And to remember the Pascal's triangle and all of that, I mean, I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying, unless that was like crazy, like to the 5th degree or, 6th degree, or where you'd be sitting here multiplying all day, to me, again, if that degree isn't too high, it's easier just to multiply it out, in my mind, than it is to remember the expansion theorem. Anyway, so 2 at a time. W times W would be W squared. W times 1 would be W. 1 times W would be W. And 1 times 1 would be 1. Combine like terms, I get W squared plus 2W plus 1. And then I bring everything else down that I still need to do, which is multiply by W plus 1 and add 3. So now I'm going to distribute that blue and red. So I got W squared times W, which is W cubed. W squared times 1 is W squared. 2W times W is 2W squared. 2W times 1 is 2W. 1 times W is W. 1 times 1 is 1. And then don't forget, you still have your plus 3 on the end there. Alright, so now we can combine like terms. I have no other W cubes. I have W squared, and 2W squared makes 3W squareds. I have a positive 2W and a 1W, which makes 3W. And I have a 1 and a 3, which makes 4. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 40,000 meters. So it says a wheel with a circumference of 1 meter rolls over a flat road for 20 kilometers. Then the same wheel rolls over a flat road for 15 kilometers and then uphill for another 5 kilometers. How far did the wheel roll in all? And keep in mind that 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. Well, if we went 20 kilometers, then he went 15 kilometers, and then he went 5 kilometers, the fact that he's going uphill or on a flat road doesn't affect the distance that is traveled. And neither does the well, because the circumference is 1 meter, the circumference doesn't matter either. Okay, so we're going a total of 40 kilometers. Well, they want to know how much that is in meters. Well, to convert kilometers to meters, they told me what to do. They said, there's your conversion rate between kilometers and meters. There's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So if I want kilometers to go away, I put it on the bottom and they cancel. So I have 40 times 1,000, which is 40,000 meters. Okay. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright, so we can't combine those. There's in adding and subtracting radicals, the index has to match and the radicand has to match, or you cannot add or subtract them. So you got to break these radicals down. So if I take 135 and break it down by primes, divide by 5, I get 27. 5 isn't going to work anymore. By 3 is 9. By 3 is 3. I'm looking for cube roots, so that means it takes 3 to make a perfect cube. Well, there's 3 3's. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. The cube root of 27 is 3. And then this guy's going to have to go back in. So for this term, I have the 4 that's already there, times my perfect 3, times the cube root of 5. So 4 cube roots of 135 is really 12 cube roots of 5. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to the cube root of 320. So I'm going to break down 320. By 5 is going to be 64. 2 to 5 isn't going to work anymore. By 2 is 32. By 2 is 16. By 2 is 8. By 2 is 4. By 2 is 2. For every 3, it makes a perfect, because that would be 8. The cube root of 8 is 2. That would be 8. The cube root of 8 is 2. And then this guy has to go back in. So for the blue, I had the negative 1 out there, times this 2, times this 2, times the cube root of 5, which gives me a negative 4 cube roots of 5. Okay? So now they match. See how my radicals are both cube roots of 5 now? Now that they match, I can keep the cube root of 5 and as the add or subtract the coefficients. 12 take away 4 is 8 of them. Okay. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got D. Alright, it says in triangle ABC and XYZ shown below, angle A is congruent to angle X and angle C is congruent to angle Z. They marked them for us. The length of side YZ is 3 and the length of side XY is 8. The length of side CB is 14. What is the measure of side AB? So they're wanting us to find little c. Okay? Well, we know that because of what do I know? Those aren't congruent, but they're similar triangles. So that tells me that this little side corresponds to this side, just as this side corresponds to C. So if I set those up and I do my proportion, I get 3 times C is equal to 14 times 8. So 3C equals 112. Divide by 3, and C equals, well, 112 over 3, which is a decimal. I think, and you should get, if you type in the calculator, you get 37.33333 repeating, and everybody should know by now that repeating 3's is 1/3. So 37 and 1/3. Okay. I'm just trying to think here. This problem isn't very well written, I don't think. They're assuming that those triangles are similar without really saying that, but okay. Alright, go try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright, it says if a right triangle has legs of 4 and 6, what is the length of the hypotenuse? Well, that's Pythagorean theorem. 4 squared plus 6 squared equals the hypotenuse squared. That's 16 plus 36 equals hypotenuse squared. That's 52 equals hypotenuse squared, so square root. And my hypotenuse equals the square root of 52, which isn't there because they broke this down. So 52, if I divide by 2, I get 26. By 2, I get 13. So there's a perfect square. Square root of 4 is 2. 13 isn't perfect. So my hypotenuse is 2 square roots of 13. Okay? Alright, hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright. Always, whenever it says factor, always look for a GCF first. And I know that I can take a 4 out of both of those. So if I GCF by 4, that's going to leave x cubed plus 8. That answer isn't there because this is sum of cubes. And for sum of cubes, your song goes bino, trino. If it's plus, it goes plus, minus, plus. And what you do to fill your terms, you take the cube root of the first term, so the cube root of x cubed is x, that goes there. The cube root of 8 is 2, and that goes there. Then what you do to get your trino terms is you square these and put them on the ends of the trino. So x squared would be x squared, 2 squared would be 4. And then you multiply these two together, x times 2, and that goes in the middle. So we still have the 4 that we GCF'd out. Then we have the bino, x plus 2. Then we have the trino, x squared minus 2x plus 4. And we have factored. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got X. So it says Mary rides her bike a distance s and Victor rides his bike half of Mary's distance. Which of the following represents the total distance that Mary and Victor rode? Well, if Mary rides her bike a distance of s and Victor rodes it half of Mary's distance, that's half of s. Okay, so we're taking s plus 1/2 s, which I don't see there, so they must have gotten a common denominator. Well, this is 1 whole s plus 1/2 of an s, so if I take 1 plus 1/2, that's 1.5. Well, if you take 1.5 and make it improper, 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3, so that would be 3/2 s. And then they wrote it like this, because this would really say 3 over 2 times s over 1, which is 3s over 2. This is correct, but not in the form they wrote. This is correct, but they didn't write it in that form. So again, sometimes you got to get your answer and then play with it to make it look like how they represented the answer. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got D. So it says, which one of the following number lines represent the solutions for the variable a in this inequality? Well, I got to simplify this and somehow get a alone. So the first thing I see is a whole bunch of parentheses. So I'm going to distribute here, and I'm going to distribute the a over here. So that would give me 7 plus 10a minus 5a squared greater than negative 5a squared plus 12a. And when you multiply a by this term that's dividing by a, those a's cancel out, and I'm just left with 11. Alright, so I've got everything distributed. Now I see second degree, so I want to get 0 on one side. It doesn't really matter which way you go. I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go this way. So I'm going to add 5a squared, and I'm going to add 5a squared. Hey, Merry Christmas, that killed them. Okay, so then I'm going to move the a over there, so I'm going to minus 12a, minus 12a. That gives me 7 minus 2a greater than 11. So now that it's just linear, I don't have a second degree anymore, I just have to get a alone. So minus 7, I get negative 2a greater than 4. Now when I divide by negative 2, my inequality has to flip. And 4 divided by negative 2 would be negative 2. And to graph that, at negative 2, I'd give it an open circle because there's no bar under it. And this says your answers are smaller, less than, to the left of negative 2. So that's the graph I'm looking for, an open circle on negative 2 and everything to the left. Okay. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got H. So, they want us to figure out what this equals. Well, again, I'm going to distribute. The square root of 4 times the square root of 4 is the square root of 16. Square root of 4 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 8. Minus the square root of 5 times the square root of 20 is the square root of 100. Well, the square root of 16 is 4. 8 is not perfect, but if I break it down, I get 2 square roots of 2. And the square root of 100 is 10. So if I combine like terms, 4 minus 10 is negative 6. So I have 2 square roots of 2 minus 6. Okay. Alright, hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 3. It says in the right triangle XYZ below, XZ is the square root of 18 units long. What is the length of side YZ? Well, it's a right triangle. So you have leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. Now I can call them both L's because this says that they are the same length. Okay, if they weren't the same length, you couldn't just both call them L. The only reason I'm getting away with this is because those two lines tell me that those two sides are equal. So that would give me 2L squared equals 18, because when you square a square root, it cancels out. Divide by 2, I get leg squared equals 9, square root, and leg equals plus or minus 3, but a negative 3 don't make any sense, so my answer is 3. Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got J. Alright, so it says, what is the value of x in this equation? Well, first of all, I'm going to get rid of this mixed number. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13 over 4. And I'm just going to make everything a fraction, even if it's not. Okay, so here's the thing. We all hate fractions, okay? To kill fractions or to eliminate them, or they call it clearing the fractions. I'm just a little violent, like to kill them. What you do is you're going to multiply by something that all of those numbers go into. Do all of the numbers go into 1? Does 4 go into 1? No, of course not. Okay? So then check the next one. Well, what I would do is check the biggest one of them all. The biggest number in the denominator is 8. Do all of the other numbers go into 8? Does 4 go into 8? Yes, 2 times. Does 1 go into 8? Yes, 8 times. Does 2 go into 8? Yes, 4 times. And does 8 go into 8? Yes, 1 time. So if I want to eliminate division by 4 and 1 and 2 and 8, I need to multiply every term by 8. So then what you do is instead of multiplying first and then dividing, you're going to divide first and then multiply. So 8 divided by 4 is 2 times 13 is 26. Okay? Nothing dies here. 1 goes into 8 times, so 8 times x is 8x. 8 divided by 2 is 4 times x makes 4x. 8 goes into 8 once times 3 makes 3. And voila, we have no more fractions. Alright, so now I just need to get x alone, so I'm going to minus 4x. That gives me 26 plus 4x equals 3. So now to get x alone, I'm going to subtract 26. I get 4x equals negative 23. Divide by 4. I get x equals negative 23/4, which of course isn't there because my answer is improper. So if I do 4 goes into negative 23, negative 5 times, that's going to be 20, which leaves 3, right? So that's going to be negative 5 and 3/4. Okay? Alright, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Alright, slope, slope, slope. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So, it doesn't matter who you call what, alright? I'm going to call this point 1, which makes this x1, y1, and if this is point 2, that's x2, y2. So, my slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So on top I'd get negative 6. On bottom I would get negative 5. A negative divided by a negative is a positive 6/5. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright, it says a line segment in a standard coordinate plane with endpoints at negative 3, 2 and 7, negative 12 is reflected across the x-axis and then across the y-axis. What are the coordinates of one of the endpoints of the new line segment? Alright, so if we're going to reflect over x, we change y signs. So to reflect over x, that would put me at negative 3, negative 2, and positive 7, negative 12. So then I'm going to reflect over y, and to reflect over y, you change x's signs, which is going to give me positive 3, negative 2, and negative 7, negative 12. I forgot to change his sign. Well, that's a positive. That's a positive. So it's either this one or this one, and the only one of those two that are in the list is my negative 7, 12. Okay. Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 5, 3. It says, in the diagram below, what is the midpoint of segment RT? So they want the midpoint of those. Well, your midpoint is the average of your x's. So 3 plus 7 over 2. And the average of your y coordinates. 4 plus 2 over 2. That gives me 10 over 2, which gives me 5. That gives me 6 over 2, which gives me 3. So there's my midpoint. 5, 3. Okay. Alright. Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright, and hopefully you got an H. It says if two lines are parallel, you can be sure that F, the slopes of the two lines are inverses of each other. No. If the two lines are parallel, then the first slope has to be identical to the second slope. So if they're inverses to each other, it doesn't mean anything unless they're inverses and have opposite signs, but that would make them perpendicular, not parallel. G, the y-intercepts of the two lines are inverses of each other. It's possible, but it's not for sure. Okay, they could be inverses of each other, but it's not for sure. H, the slopes of the two lines are equal to each other. That I'm sure of. If you have parallel lines, their slopes have to be the same. J says the y-intercepts of the two lines are equal to each other. Again, possible, but not for sure. Could be, but not always. K, the slope of one line is the negative value of the slope of the other. Again, that's half of being perpendicular. If you have changed the signs and inverse, then you would have perpendicular slopes to each other. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got C. So it says 7 less than, which means I'm taking 7 away from something else. And it says I'm taking it away from the product of 4 and x. Product means multiply. Is equal to, please put an equal sign. 3 more than, that means 3 added to. Again, a product means I'm fixing to multiply 2 and the x. So there's my equation. I just have to solve it for x. So I'm going to minus 2x minus 2x. That gives me 2x minus 7 equals 3. Add 7. 2x equals 10. Divide by 2. X equals 5. And maybe I should read directions before I just start taking off and wasting time. Sorry. Which of the following equations shows this relationship? Sorry, that's all they wanted. My bad. I did too much work. Be careful. Okay? You don't want to do more work that's necessary, and especially in a real ACT situation. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully that's it. So it says the area of a certain triangle with a base of 8 units. So the base is 8 units and the area is 16. So I don't know the height. A rectangle has an area equal to the area of a triangle, so it's saying its area is also 16. If the length of the rectangle is twice as long as the height of the triangle, so whatever this is, alright, the length is 2 times that. What is the width of the rectangle? Well, if your area is 16, well, let's figure out the height. Yeah, we gotta have the height. So if I figure out the height here, I know that area of a triangle is my base times my height divided by 2. But they told me that area was 16. So kill the fraction, multiply by 2. That gives me 32 equals 8h. Divide by 8, and I get h equals 4, which means this length is 8. So now I know that the area equals length times width in a rectangle. Well, again, my area is 16. My length is 8, w. So to figure out w, I divide by 8, and I get a width of 2. Okay? Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully that's C. So it says the area of a triangle is 12 square units and the height is 6. What is the length of the base? Well, area of a triangle equals the base times the height divided by 2. Kill the fraction, times 2 times 2, I get 24 equals 6b. Divide by 6, and my base has to equal 4. Okay? Try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. So it says the measure of the inscribed angle ACB in the circle 0 below, I shouldn't say 0, O, below, circle O, is 90 degrees. If the circle has a radius of 5 units, what is the length of arc BC? Well, we know that the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. So I know that my circumference is 2 pi times 5, which gives me a circumference of 10 pi. Well, arc AB, remember your arc of an inscribed angle is double the angle, so 2 times 90 is 180 degrees. Well, that's 180 degrees is exactly half of the circumference. So, my good grief, my circumference is 10 pi, so half of that would be 5 pi. Okay? Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got A. It says if the area of a circle is 25 pi square units, what is the radius of the circle? Well, area equals pi r squared. So it tells me that the area is 25 pi, and that has to equal pi r squared. Well, I need to get r alone, so divide by pi, cancel, cancel, and I get r squared equals 25. Square root, and the radius has to be 5. Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 1. So it says a sphere, which has a volume of 4/3 pi r cubed, has a radius of 3. A right circular cylinder, whose formula for volume is pi r squared h, has a radius of 6. What is the height of the cylinder if the cylinder has the same volume as the sphere? Well, I need two things. I need the volume of the sphere, which is 4/3 pi r cubed, and I need the volume of the cylinder, which is pi r squared h. Well, let's see, what do I know? I know that the sphere has a radius of 3. So the volume there is going to be 4/3 times pi times 3 cubed. That volume is going to be 4/3 pi times 27. And that, I'm just going to leave that for right now. And then over here, if I simplify this side, or this formula, plugging in its radius, I get a volume of pi times 6 squared height. which gives me 36 pi h. And it says that those volumes have to be the same if the cylinder has the same volume as the sphere. So what I'm saying is if his volume equals this and his volume equals this, since the volumes are equal, then these have to be equal. So I can say 4/3 pi times 27 has to equal 37 pi h. And now I can figure out the height of my cylinder by getting h alone. Well, again, I don't like fractions, so the first thing I do is multiply by the denominator to kill it, which gives me, oh, actually I didn't do that, sorry, I just did 4/3 times 27, and I got 36 pi equals 36 pi times height. So to get height, I'm going to divide by 36 pi, and I get a height of 1. Okay. Alright, try this one. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got C. So it says, which of the following is not a rational number? A rational number is any number that can be written in the form of a fraction. Well, the square root of 1 is 1, the square root of 49 is 7. I can write that in the form of a fraction, so yes, it's rational. 2 1/3, again, I can write as a fraction. That's going to be 6 plus 1 is 7/3. 27, if you type that in on a calculator, you're going to get 5.196152423, but it goes on and on forever and ever and ever. So if I try and math enter it, and it gives me a decimal back, it's saying you can't make it a fraction, which means it's irrational. So there's the one that's not rational. If you do 324, that's, if you type it in, it's a perfect 18, which I can make a fraction by putting over 1. 0.6 is 6/10, so I can write that as a fraction, which makes it rational. That's the only one that cannot be forced to look like a fraction if you had to. Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Okay, so it says, given the equation, absolute value of -2 minus x equals 6, which of the following could not be true? Well, if you remember, it's drop the bars, drop the equals, keep the sign the same, or drop the bars, drop the equals, and change the sign on the other side. So if I solve both of those, add 2, negative x equals 8, divide by -1, I get x equals -8. Okay, or this one, add 2, I get negative x equals -4, divide by -1, divide by -1, x equals 4. So, which of these could not be true? Well, x equals 8, -8, that's true. X equals 4, that's true. Then I wrote this equation, -2 minus x equals 6, that's true. -2 minus x equals -6, that's true. -2 minus x does not equal 8, it equals -6, so that's the one that cannot be true. Okay, give me just a second. And I will be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got D. Alright, you can't divide by a radical. So what you do is you rationalize this by multiplying the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom, which is going to be 2 minus the square root of 3. Top and bottom. So on top, I've got 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times the negative square root of 3 is -3 square roots of 3. On bottom, I have 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times the negative square root of 3 is -2 square roots of 3. Positive square root of 3 times 2 is a +2 square roots of 3. The positive square root of 3 times the negative square root of 3 is a negative square root of 9. Okay, now what happens always with conjugates is the 2 in the middle cancel. Square root of 9 is 3. 4 minus 3 is 1, so my denominator is 1, which gives me 6 minus 3 square roots of 3. Okay? Try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Alright, and hopefully you got G. It says, let EB equal IR be the formula for voltage in a circuit, where E is volts, so if they give me volts, it's E. I is amperes, and R is ohms. If a circuit has 3 amperes, so they're giving me the I, and 12 volts, so they're giving me E equals 12, how many ohms, so they're asking me to find R. Well, I have 12 equals 3 times R, divide by 3, and R equals 4. Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got C. So it says if cosine theta equals the square root of 2 over 2, what are the possible values of sine theta? Well, cosine theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And they're giving me the square root of 2 over 2. Well, your hypotenuse can never be negative. And they're saying that adjacent is positive. So if I draw a coordinate system, all right, my cosine of theta adjacent would be positive square root of 2, and the hypotenuse would be 2. So I could go up here, or I could go down here. And let me show you why. Okay, if I do this measure, okay, this would be adjacent, which would be the square root of 2, and this would be hypotenuse, which would be 2. But I could also go positive square root of 2 and go to here. Dang it. Okay, so I would also have this one as possible. Well, they want to know sine. Well, if this is 2 and this is the square root of 2, to figure out this leg, that would be my opposite to get my sine. So I'm going to have to do Pythagorean theorem, and I'm going to have the leg squared plus the other leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. There's my hypotenuse, there's my leg, there's my other leg. So square root of 2 squared is 2, plus L squared is 4. Subtract 2, I get L squared equals 2. So the length is the square root of 2, which gives me, hey, 45, 45 90s, doesn't it? So legs are equal. But it could give me a positive square root of 2, or I could go down a square root of 2, which would make, again, if I'm looking at this angle, sine of that would be opposite, which is the square root of 2, over hypotenuse, which is 2. And the other one, sine theta down here, would be the square root of 2. I mean, a negative square root of 2 over the hypotenuse would be 2. So it's got to be 1 and 2. Okay. All right. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got K. So it says, which of the following answers gives all the solutions for x in the equation x squared minus 4 is less than 0? If I solve this as an equation, add 4, x squared equals 4, square root, x equals plus or minus 2. If you put that on a number line, negative 2, positive 2, and you got to see where the solutions are, so you got to test. I find 0 and test it because it's the easiest to test. If I change x to 0, I have 0 squared minus 4 is less than 0. That would give me negative 4 is less than 0, which is true. That means I shade there. Now, again, I caution you, okay? Generally speaking, when you do these sign charts, once you find one section, then it's going to alternate. But you should check. In an ACT situation, I doubt that I would, because time is such an issue. Okay, once you find true, then you know the other places are going to be, or it's going to alternate between true and false. But again, you could test something up here and test something down here and prove it, but it's saying my values are between here. So that says my answers are between -2 and 2. And since there was no bar on the original problem, there's no bar there. Okay? All right, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Okay, so it says, which of the following expressions is equivalent to that? Well, looks like they've done some simplifying. And I notice here a negative exponent. What that means is I got to move it to the bottom. So that's going to be 1 over -b to the +2 minus a squared. Well, what that is going to be is 1 over b squared minus a squared over 1. And if I want to combine fractions, I've got to get a common denominator. So Chris would be 1 times 1 minus cross would be b squared times a squared over straight across would be b squared. So that gives me 1 minus a squared b squared all over b squared. Because you can multiply in any order. So b squared times a squared is the same as a squared times b squared. Okay, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Hopefully you got H. It says, so for what row values of t is this function defined? It's defined everywhere except for when the denominator turns to 0. You can't ever have your denominator equal to 0. So if I solve that, add 4, t squared can never equal +4, square root. T can never equal plus or minus 2. So it's defined everywhere except for values that make my denominator 0. Okay, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got A. So it says a line segment AB with a midpoint at 3, 5 is located in the standard XY coordinate plane. If point A is located at 2, 7, what are the coordinates of point B? So this is A, there's the midpoint, there's point B. Well, the midpoint, your formula is midpoint equals the average of the x's, comma, average of the y's. Okay? So it's telling me I know my midpoint. My midpoint is 3, 5. And that has to equal the average of my x's, which would be 2 plus x over 2, and the average of my y endpoints, which would be 7 plus y over 2. Well, the only way this is true, guys, is if 3 is equal to this. I'm saying they're equivalent. Well, the only way that's true is if whatever's in the first positions are equal and whatever in the y positions are equal. So you set up those two equations and then we solve them. Multiply by 2. I get 6 equals 2 plus x minus 2. I get x equals 4. This one times 2 times 2, I get 10 equals 7 plus y minus 7. I get y equal 3. So the other endpoint has coordinates at 4, 3. Yeah? That's completely drawn wrong, but whatever. You know that. Okay. Alright, go. Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. Alright, well I know it's not tangent because tangent are the waves. Okay? And I know it's not cosine because cosine, unless you do some sort of a shift up or down, doesn't pass through the origin. Your cosine will start at the amplitude. So it's got to be sine. Well, your formula for sine is y equals a sine bx. Well, that amplitude is how high or low it goes. Well, this thing's oscillating between positive and negative 2, so my amplitude is 2. And then the period would tell me this, but they're both the same, so it don't matter. And sine finishes in 2 pi. All right, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got D. It says in rectangle WXYZ, below, WX is 8 units long. U is the midpoint, which makes that 4 and that 4. Of WX, how long is ZU? So we're looking for a little w. If the measure of ZUW is 45 degrees. Well, if this is a rectangle, then these are 90-degree angles. Follow? This is a triangle with a 90 and a 45, which means the third angle has to be 45 because they got to add up to 180. Okay, well, if it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle, that tells me that the legs are equal. So if that side's 4, then this side has to be 4. All right, so what are we looking for? ZU. Seriously, it's just the right triangle. Wow, I was making that harder than it was. It's a right triangle. So we have 4 squared plus 4 squared equals hypotenuse squared. That's 16 plus 16 is 32. Square root, I get the height is, or not the height, well, yeah, the hypotenuse. If I break down 32, by 2 is 16, by 2 is 8, by 2 is 4, by 2 is 2. 2 2's makes a perfect 2, 2 2's makes a perfect 2, and that one's back in, so I have 4 square roots of 2. Okay, alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Alright, so they just want us to simplify this. Well, the key again, anytime you have fractional exponents, is you can rewrite it in radical form. That would be the cube root of 27. And if I break 27 down, by 3 is 9, by 3 is 3. So there's a perfect 3, which makes 27 to the 1/3 equal to 3. You could also break down 27 and rewrite this problem. Instead of writing 27, you could write it as 3 cubed. Then you power. When you power, you multiply. So that'd be 3 to the 3 times 1/3, which would be 3/3, which would be 1, and anything to the first degree is itself. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright, hopefully you got C. Alright, we have to simplify this by multiplying the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom, which is going to be the square root of A minus the square root of B. Alright, dang it. So on top, I have 2 times the square root of A times 1 square root of A, which is 2 square roots of A squared. I have 2 square roots of A times negative B, which is a negative 2 square root of AB. I have negative 3 square roots of B times the square root of A, which is going to give me negative 3 square roots of AB. And I have negative square roots of 3B, 3 times the square root of B times the negative square root of B, which is going to be a positive 3 square roots of B squared. Well, again, the square root of A squared is just A, so this becomes 2A. 2 of them, negative 2 of them here, and negative 3 of them here, make negative 5 of those radicals altogether. And then the square root of B squared is B, so that's just 3B. Well, there's my top. And at this point, you can check the tops and go, I don't need to do the bottom. That's the only one that has the right top. But on bottom, if we simplified, we'd say the square root of A times the square root of A is square root of A squared, which is just A. Square root of a times the negative square root of b is a negative square root of ab. Positive square root of b times a is a positive square root of ab. And a positive square root of b times the negative square root of b is a negative square root of b squared. Well, again, those canceled out. Square root of a squared is a. Square root of b squared is b. Right? So my bottom turns into a minus b. No more radicals. Alright, try this one. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. It says a town planner designs a town based on the standard XY plane. How long is a street that runs from coordinate 518 to coordinate 216? Distance formula, square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. That's going to give me 16 squared, and that's going to give me a negative 12 squared. And that's going to give me 256 plus 144, which gives me the square root of 400, which gives me 20. Okay. Try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Okay. What you're going for here, guys, is you can't simplify this. I mean, what you're going to try and do is keep, change, flip it. You're going to change this, you're going to flip this fraction over and then multiply it by the top. Okay, well, in order to do that, you can't do that until you've done all adding and subtracting on top. So on top, I have 2 over a plus 1 over 1. All right, well, I need a common denominator, which is going to be a. So would you agree that a over a is still 1? And it is. Now they have a common denominator. So I'd have 2 plus a over a on top. Okay. On bottom, I'm going to do the same thing. I have 4 over 1 plus 5 over a. Well, I need a denominator of a. Or you could do the crisscross straight across. Criss would be 4a plus cross would be 5. All over crisscross would be a. So that's going to be 4a plus 5 over a. Now that I have all of the operations on top and bottom done, now I can keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep the 2 plus a over a, change to multiply, and flip this guy over. So it'll be a over 4a plus 5. Well, the a's cancel, and I'm left with 2 plus a on top and 4a plus 5 on the bottom. Done. Okay. Yes, yes. All right, you try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got F. All right, if cosecant theta, what is cosecant theta if sine theta is 3/5? Well, cosecant theta is reciprocal to sine theta. So cosecant equals 1 over sine theta. So if I know basically to get this, I use this formula and hope they gave me sine theta. Oh, look, they did. So my cosecant theta is going to be 1 over 3/5. So how did they get this? Well, keep, change, flip, keep the 1, change the times, flip the fraction, I get 5/3. Okay? All right, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. All right, we got A. So I have 4 to the negative 2, which means 1 over 4 to the 2, plus 9 minus 1, because anything to the 0 degree is 1. So I have 1 over 16 plus 9 minus 1. So now I need a common denominator, which will be, well, let's just do this. Let's do 1 over 16 plus 8 over 1. Because I'll combine those two and make it a fraction. Alright, so I can do crisscross straight across. Criss would be 1, plus cross would be 16 times 8, 128, over straight across would be 16. So that gives me 129 over 16, which isn't there. So I divide on my calculator 125 over 16, and it goes in there 8 whole times. Right? And when I do 8 times 16, I get 120. 5 comes down. 16, it goes into 50. What am I doing? Oh, my bad. There leaves 5 left over. What do I do? Oh, that's 129. What did I do? Oh, times 8 is 128, which leaves 1 left over. There we go. Sorry. So that's 8 and 1/16. Sorry. Fading off here. Going to sleep. All right, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. So you have 2 routes to drive. If you drive the first route twice and the second route 5 times, you travel 9 miles. If you travel the first route twice and the second route 4 times, you travel 8 miles. What is the sum of the lengths of the 2 routes? So it's the system. All right, so let's say we've got the first route, let's call it X, and the second route we'll call Y. So it says if you drive the first route twice, so that's 2 X's, and the second route 5, so plus 5 Y's, you go 9 miles total. If you drive the first route twice, so again 2X, and the second route 4 times, so 4 Y's, you travel 8 miles. Okay, so I got to figure out what X and Y is and then add them together. Well, I'm going to kill the X's because the numbers already match. So all I have to do is multiply the top by the bottom and the bottom by the top. Which, again, since the numbers already match, I just need to multiply by once. But since they are the same sign, I need to make one of mine negative or they won't cancel out. So I would have 2X plus 5Y equals 9. And I would have negative 2X, negative 4Y equals negative 8. Voila, the X's die. 5y minus 4y is 1y equals 9, take away 8 is 1. Okay, substitute it back in to figure out what x is. So I'm going to have 2x plus 4 times whatever my 4 was worth, which was 1. Distribute, I get 2x equals, 2x plus 4 equals 8 minus 4. 2x equals 4, divide by 2, and I get x equals 2. So if I add up those, I get 3. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got B. So it says, what is the circumference of a circle whose radius is 4 centimeters long? Circumference is 2 pi r. So my circumference is going to be 2 times pi times my radius, which is going to give me 8 pi. Okay? So which of the following graphs located in the standard coordinate plane shows the points found on the graph of the equation y equals 2 minus the square root of x for x equal 4 and x equal 9? If I change x to 4, I get y equals 2 minus the square root of 4, which gives me 2 minus 2, which gives me 0. So that coordinate, that point, would be 4, comma, 0, which is right here. Okay, then if I plug in 9, I have y equals 2 minus the square root of 9, which would be 2 minus 3, which would be negative 1. So I also get, when I plug in 9, I get negative 1, which is right there. Okay? Alright. Try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. Alright, so it says, given that XYZ is similar to ABC, and then I'm going to label my sides. This would be little x, little y, little z, little a, little b, little c. We know that they're similar, so the sides have to be proportional. So little x corresponds to little a, just as little y corresponds to little b, just as little z corresponds to little c. Okay, so let's see what I know. What are they trying to find? The sum of the lengths of x, y. So I want z. And side x is z. So I want to take z and y and add them up. Which means I have to find them first. Darn it, hold on. Okay, so let's plug in what we know. I know that little x is 9, and that little a is 3, that little y is little y, that little b is 5, that little z is z, and little c is 4. Okay, well, I'm going to find y first, so I'm going to solve these two, which would give me 9 times 5 equals 3 times y. So I got 45 equals 3y. Divide by 3 and I get y equals 15. Okay. And then I'm going to find my z by doing these two. So I'd have 9 times 4 equals 3 times z. So 36 equals 3z. Divide by 3 and I get z equals 12. And if you add those up, you get 27. Okay, hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got H. It says a clay sphere has a volume of 36 pi centimeters cubed. If someone cuts straight through the sphere, the cross section is a circle. What is the area of the largest circular cross section? Wow. Okay, so the radius of the largest circle will have the same radius as the sphere. Okay, so if I can take the volume of a sphere, 36 pi, set it equal to 4/3 pi r cubed, okay, and I can solve that for the radius. I'm going to multiply by 3 and kill the fraction. That's going to give me 108 pi equals 4 pi r cubed. Divide by 4 pi, and I get r cubed equals 27. Cube root, and I get r equals 3. So now that I know r equals 3 and my circle is going to have the same radius because I cut it from the sphere, and they want to know the area of the largest circular cross section, well, area is pi r squared. So that's going to give me an area of pi times 3 squared, which gives me an area of 9 pi. Yeah? Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got B. All right, if the roots of the equation are 4 and negative 1/2, which of the following could be the equation? You could do this different ways. I actually took my solutions and wrote an equation and checked them each in the equation, okay? What I didn't consider doing was just plugging these in. If they're roots, then when you plug them into the equation, they have to be true. So I could try and say 12 times 4 squared minus 12 times 4 minus 4 equals 30 times 4 plus 20. Well, that's 16 times 12 is, I don't know. See, I shouldn't change plans in the middle, but I do all the time. 192 minus 48 minus 4 equal 120 plus 20. So I got 192 minus 52 would be 140. 120 plus 20 is 140, so that works. Now we got to try and plug in 1/2. I have 12 times a half squared minus 12 times negative 1/2. 12 times negative 1/2 minus 4 equal 30 times negative 1/2 plus 20. Okay, I got 12 times 1/4 minus, well, negative times a negative is plus half of 12 is 6 minus 4 equals half of negative half of 30 is 15 plus 20. A quarter of 12 is 3 plus 6 is 10 minus 4 is 2. Negative 15 plus 20 is negative or positive 5, and 2 does not equal 5. Okay, so no, times, and that's 9 minus 4 is 5. 5 does equal 5, so 1 is true. Okay, if I try number 2, and I plug in 4, I have 4 minus 4 times 2 times 4 plus 4 equals 0. 4 minus 4 is 0. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 4 is 12. But 0 times, that's true. But what if I plug in negative 1/2? Well, I'd have negative 1/2 minus 4. And I'd have 2 times negative 1/2 plus 4. Well, let's see. Negative 1, this would be negative 4.5. This is going to be negative 1 plus 4 is 3. Negative 4.5 times 3 is not 0. So 2 cannot happen. Okay, and then if I check 3, plug in 4, 2 times 4 minus 8 times 6 times 4 plus 3. You get 8 minus 8, which is 0, times, I don't care what that is, you get 0, so that works. Try the 1/2, 2 times negative 1/2 minus 8. 6 times negative 1/2 plus 3. Let's see, negative half of 2 is negative 1, minus 8 would be negative 9. Negative half of 6 would be 3, negative 3, plus 3 would be 0. Anything times 0 is 0, so that works. They both worked there, which means 1 and 3 are true, and the others are all false. All right, try this one. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. If the absolute value of 3x plus 7 has to be greater than or equal to 5, which of the following is the largest negative number included in the solution set? Well, I'm going to have to solve it. You drop the bars, drop the inequality, keep the sign the same. Then you drop the bars, you flip the inequality, and you change the sign on the other side. Alright, so now I'm going to get x alone. So minus 7 3x has to be greater than negative 2. Divide by 3. X has to stay greater than or equal to negative 2/3. If I solve the other one, minus 7, I get 3x less than or equal to negative 12. Divide by 3. X is less than or equal to negative 4. So, if I were drawing this, I'd have negative 4, negative 2/3, and it would say greater than negative 2/3, smaller than negative 4. So what is the largest negative number? Negative 4. That's included in the, I mean, this would be the largest negative, but that was not listed, so the one included in the solution set would have to be the negative 4. Alright, try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got sine theta. Alright, on top, I know that 1 over, you're looking at your reciprocal identities, 1 over cosecant is the same as sine theta. So I can rewrite the top as sine theta. On bottom, you should recognize the most famous Pythagorean identity of all. Cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta always equals 1. So we have sine theta over 1, which is just sine theta. Alright, and try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got uno. Alright, so it says find the lowest value of 0.4 p that meets the requirement for p and q in all of the inequalities shown below. Okay, so I want the lowest value of 0.4 p. Well, if I can, I'm going to find q first. Because the bigger q is, the smaller p can be. Alright, well I know that q has to be between 3 and 6. And I want the biggest q I can, so I want q to be 6. So now if I take an equation that has p and q in it, and I plug in my q, I get p times 6 has to be greater than or equal to 15. So divide by 6, p has to be greater than or equal to 5/2, which is 2.5. Okay? So if p has to be greater than 5/2, the smallest p can be is 2.5, or 5/2. Okay? But it didn't say how small can p be. What's the lowest value of 0.4 times p? Well, if I take this times 0.4, which is also 4/10, top times top is 20, 2 times 10 is 20, 20 divided by 20 is 1. Alright, so that ends our first practice test. I hope you did well, and I will see you next time for the second practice test.